A large portion of the Jewish nation has returned to its homeland, but the heart, soul, and mind of much of the Jewish nation are still in exile mode. This state of affairs must and will inevitably change. This is Torah Nation TV from Jerusalem, and we are speaking with the head of Machon Shilo, Rabbi David Bar-Hayim. Shalom, Rabbi Bar-Hayim.
Shalom.
During these days between Yom Tkumat Yisrael, Yom Ha'atzmaut, Israel Independence Day, and Yom Geulat Yerushalayim U'Makom HaMikdash, Yom Yerushalayim, Jerusalem Day, the question of what is done by HASHEM and what is done by human beings becomes even more acute. There are those who claim that the events in Eretz Yisrael over the last 130 years, and specifically the establishment of the State of Israel, are not HaShem's doing, but man's doing. Some even go so far as to suggest that it is all the devil's doing. What does the rabbi have to say regarding these claims?
This topic is actually much more fundamental and essential to a proper understanding of Torah Judaism than many people realize. Let us begin by relating to the suggestion that everything that has gone on vis-a-vis the history of the Jewish people over the last 130 odd years, and specifically the events here in the land of Israel over that period, the period in which we find increasingly Jews returning to their homeland, building the land, and eventually reconstituting Jewish sovereignty in the land of Israel, leading up to the present situation that we find ourselves in today. The suggestion that all of this is the work of the devil, or in Hebrew, Ma'aseh Satan, this suggestion is nothing short of outrageous. Such a suggestion, which is in fact totally foreign to authentic Torah Judaism, smacks of perhaps one could say Roman Catholicism or other branches of Christianity, in which the devil features in a very important, almost star role, one could say, as if there were such a power that is independent of HaShem. And one could even go further perhaps and suggest that this smacks of Zoroastrianism, where you have two deities, one good and one evil, vying with each other for all eternity. Such ideas are not representative in any way of Torah Judaism. So this claim that what we see before us is the work of the devil, Ma'aseh Satan, this is a very incorrect, misleading, and in fact pernicious view of reality, and it is known that this view is associated with certain circles, extreme, so-called ultra-Orthodox Hasidic circles, particularly the Satmar Hasidic dynasty and its followers. This approach we can reject out of hand, and in fact no normative, stable Jewish Torah authority or group of individuals follows such a position. So we can do away with that at the outset. On the other hand, the question of whether a certain action is the act of HaShem, the working of HaShem, or the working of human beings, that is a very serious and very real question which we have to address and grapple with in the most realistic and serious manner. Just the other day, on Yom Tkumat Yisrael, which is Yom Ha'atzmaut, Israel's Independence Day, I heard on the radio Natan Sharansky, who is currently the chairman of the Sochnut, the Jewish agency, speak at the traditional International Bible Quiz, which takes place on that day. And he related about his own life, his own experience, and his own family. He related the following story, and I think it is of value that I share this story with you. It is known that Nathan Sharansky, like many other individuals in Soviet Russia, starting in the 60s, began to rediscover their Jewish roots and their connection to their ancient Jewish culture and traditions. And they wished to study Hebrew and study Judaism, the Bible, etc. And of course all of this was illegal and outlawed and banned by the Soviet authorities, and many Jews who actually tried to do so found themselves in Siberia, and many lost their lives as a result of this desire to return to their Jewish roots. And Nathan Sharansky was one such person, as were many other individuals whose names are quite well known today, people like Yosef Mendelevich and people like the present speaker of the Israeli Knesset, Yoel Yuli Edelstein is also such a person. All these people, originally from Russia, born in the Soviet Union after a number of generations of spiritual a policy of spiritual persecution in order to, aimed at destroying the Jewish people and their traditions. All these people began to rediscover their Jewish roots. And some became more religiously attuned, and some remained a bit less so. In the case of Nathan Sharansky, his wife was able to leave Russia sooner than he was, and she came here some years before he was able to do so, and she became a very religious, Orthodox religious woman. And he, Nathan Sharansky, also eventually was able to come here to Eretz Yisrael, and he, although he's very traditional, and he makes Kiddush and he keeps Shabbat as far as I understand, but he's not what one would call normally an Orthodox Jew in the full sense of the word. And nevertheless, it is clear from what he said at that ceremony that he is a very much a believing Jew. And he raised the following question. He said, I've always had this discussion with my wife. Is the fact that all these Jews who made the effort, who ran the risks involved in trying to return to their Jewish roots in Soviet Russia, is the fact that these events took place, is that the hand of HaShem, is it the working of HaShem, or is it the fact that there were people who were courageous and who made it their business to make these things happen? And he said eventually both of us came to the conclusion that the answer to this question, either this or that, is yes. In other words, it's both. In other words, there is most certainly a divine plan. There is a hashgaha Elohit, there is a divine providence and plan for the world and for the Jewish people in particular, which we see playing out before us in front of our eyes today as we speak. And this has been going on for many, many years, many generations in fact, and will continue to do so for many generations. And there's also the human aspect to this. In other words, he said, HaShem plans these events. HaShem has a plan, and he puts these things into motion. But every individual Jew has the right, as it were, and the privilege and the responsibility to decide for him or herself whether he wishes to join that plan, to be part of that plan, whether he or she wishes to work with HaShem and be part of this great divine design for humanity and for Am Yisrael, or not. A person can choose to opt out, in which case that person will eventually be lost to the Jewish people. And this is true for someone who finds themselves in Soviet Russia or in Russia today or in any country on earth. It's also true for Jews in Israel today as well. There are certain Jews in Israel today who essentially, ideologically, intellectually, they have opted out from belonging to the Jewish people and having anything to do with Jewish history and Jewish civilization and culture, and therefore with Jewish destiny. And whether they live here or not, and whether they speak Hebrew or not, is really not the point, because eventually these people and all their children will disappear from the Jewish people. They will be left behind. And that's a very tragic thing, but that is their decision. HaShem does not force us to be part of his plan. We have to choose and opt to be part of HaShem's great design for the Jewish people and for humanity. And this is the great privilege that all of us, particularly in these generations, have been zoche to, that we have merited this state of affairs in Jewish history, this point in history where we are able to choose whether we wish to be part of Hashem's plan or not. So the answer to the question whether this is Hashem's doing or man's doing, the answer is yes, it is both Hashem's doing and it is man's doing, because Hashem creates the possibilities. He sets into motion certain historical processes and events which change certain parameters within the real world, within the reality which we face, which change the lie of the land, so to speak, which therefore open up certain doors and present certain opportunities to us. And then we have to choose to take the initiative to take advantage of those opportunities, of those doors that have been opened, and actually walk through that door and do what we are able to do, what we are capable of doing, what we must do if we wish to be part of Hashem's plan. We can also opt, God forbid, to do the opposite. And that is the responsibility and the decision of every individual Jew. And that is the part of the concept of Behira Chofshit, of free will. Every human being has free will to do that which is right, or not to do that which is right, or even to do worse than that, to do that which is wrong. Every human being possesses that Behira Chofshit, that free will. Certainly, when it comes to this kind of issue that we're discussing here, every Jew has that choice to make. Am I going to be part of Hashem's will, or am I going to stand on the sidelines and let history and Hashem's plans for the world pass me by, and I will have nothing to do with that plan? This is a very big question, a very major decision which faces every individual, every Jew in this generation, and in the last several generations particularly, and in the coming generations as well. It will face all of us, and our children, and our grandchildren, etc. And this is one of the great tests and one of the great privileges of living in this generation. In conclusion, I wish to add that this issue and this question does not relate only to this particular topic of how one relates to the historical developments within the Jewish people and in the land of Israel over the last 130 or more years. This question and the attitudes and the hashkafa, the outlook, the philosophical position that one adopts regarding these kinds of questions, whether one understands that the essence of Judaism is that we, the Jewish people, are commanded to work together with Hashem and to take advantage of every opportunity granted to us by Hashem who controls the flow of history, and a general understanding that this is how Judaism works and this is how the world and history work, that it is Hashem together with the Jewish people and all the other players on the stage of human affairs that create the reality in which we live. And this is because this is how Hashem wants it to be. This understanding, this awareness has a major impact on our decisions and our attitudes towards many things. For example, an issue that we've mentioned on a number of occasions is the rebuilding of the Mikdash, of the temple. There are those who imagine that it is all in the hands of Hashem, and therefore they wish to have nothing to do with it. They say it's not for us to do, it is for Hashem to make it happen in some miraculous way. Again, because they have abdicated their responsibility as Jews to be part of Hashem's plan and to accept the fact that Hashem has commanded us to do certain things, and we are commanded to be proactive about pursuing these goals. On the other hand, there are those who understand that Hashem provides us with opportunities and opens doors and creates new realities in the historical realm for us to take advantage of. But in the end, it comes down to what we, the Jewish people, do. As it says in the Talmud Yerushalmi, in Masechet Rosh Hashanah, discussing the announcement and the declaration and the decision as to when the new moon falls, and therefore when the new year begins, that till up to this point of Yetziat Mitzrayim, this was in the hands of Hashem, and now this has been given over, this task of determining the actual flow of time, deciding when the new month begins, and when the new year begins. This is now given over by Hashem to the Jewish people. And so it is all aspects of the Torah and all aspects of our destiny and our purpose here on earth. Hashem creates the possibilities and the conditions in which we are able to function, but we are commanded to follow through.
Thank you, Rabbi Bar-Hayim. We would like to encourage our viewers to share these videos with friends and send in your responses. We would also like to suggest the following opportunity to our viewers. If you identify with Rabbi Bar-Hayim's message and would like to sponsor or dedicate a video interview with the Rabbi in honor or memory of a loved one, if you would like to obtain Birkon Nusach Eretz Yisrael or invite the Rabbi for a speaking engagement, please email us at office@machonshilo.org.